Hello, welcome everyone. This is John Person. We've done a sound check. We've got Dr. Jeff Scott in-house. I wanted to welcome everyone to our introduction to stock picking class. So first and foremost, let's just take a moment to, if you could, give me a great big thank you, Ralph. I see your hello. That means you can hear me. Thank you very much. Please take a moment to read this risk disclosure. It is important. Randy, hello to you as well. A thumbs up if you can see and hear. That's a good thing. I don't want to play the Who's rock and roll song, Tommy, can you hear me? Tommy, can you see me? But hey guys, can you hear and see me? A thumbs up would be awesome. A testing of a 1, 2, 3, and it looks like we've got responses. That's awesome. Well, technology is working. I hope everyone's having, well, a good run in the market here for us. And I'll tell you what, if you enjoyed the email that we sent out, which was a little slightly humorous, hopefully, it is actually a true statement in that email. There was a shortage of condoms. And I'm thinking, boy, 9 months from now, we better reevaluate healthcare. If you're a doctor, you may want to switch practices, I guess, because obstetricians might be off the charts here. And again, it wasn't a joke. It was a serious observation. People weren't just buying toilet paper. They were stocking up on cases of wine. So in our own live trading room, Constellation Brands was a big one. But also, if you notice in that email that we shipped out to you guys as an advance notification, we also put out a trade that came up on the radar screens that we'll share with you today a little bit, called Penske Auto Group. I mean, it sounds pretty stupid, but it had a significant upside move. So I'd like to get into that with you guys and just point out, my name is John Person. I'm a 40-year veteran in the market. Many of you are familiar with my work. I've written several books. I was the co-author editor of the Commodity Traders Almanac. We've put out Candlesticks and Pivot Point Trading Triggers in mastering the stock market, high probability market timing tools. I've created several indicators that are on multiple trading platforms. The PPS indicator found on Thinkorswim, our TradeStation algorithm programs, relative strength tool, PMC, and these are a lot of tools that I've created that I wanted something that showed momentum in price, and B, for stocks, I wanted to see something a little bit more visualized with relative strength. So I think if everyone had access to a prop firm's trading strategy, that would be pretty amazing. How about tools that were modernized that a lot of props firms don't have? How about that? Because I'll tell you right now, it's not that I reinvented the wheel. I modernized and I made some technical tools a lot better. And that's what it is. We modernize technical tools the way we see things in the marketplace. And as far as these technical tools, having a platform that allows us to run scans and integrate other ideas is unbelievable. And that's combining fundamental criteria with some of the most amazing technical signals that I have seen and still continue to trade off of and profit from. I love these, and I know for a fact you guys, if you're not familiar with my work, will just be in awe and will love what you will be working with. So I also found an idea to scan for higher and lower time frame signals, meaning if a high time frame's in an uptrend, wait for the short term to confirm and go back into an uptrend. And that I want to kind of share with you, which was the whole thing about Penske Auto Group, since this email went out over the last couple of days. And I know there's a lot of stocks up because the market's up, but little stupid thing like Penske Auto Group had a very, very, very tiny risk associated with the trade setup at 31 and change. It's at 37 and change. That's a 20% gain in just a couple days. A lot of stocks are up sharply, but stocks that aren't even in earnings are up over 20%. So I think as long as you have your internet and it's connected, I think that being able to select some trades and be in the right stock in the right sectors and have a little bit more confidence in the signals that you're taking is going to make everyone a much better trader. And I think you can beat the pro traders and institutions at their own game. There are some times there are some unfair advantages. We've seen several what I call dump and pumps, where the market just slams down 2 days before some kind of news, and somebody's in the know, and that somebody knows about it. So low volume stocks can be sort of manipulated. There was one that we wrote about in this week's newsletter, and I'll share with you that particular name because I like to point these things out, and they're really hard to try to get around. This is Immunomedics, IMMU. If you take a look at that stock, IMMU, you'll see that's a classic definition of a dump before a pump. Now, the reason I bring this to your attention is because nothing is going to help to avoid that type of situation, especially when you're in very low volume, on average, low volume trades. So one of the things that I like to do is not get into trades that the volumes are sub 1 million shares. And if I do, I better have a really good, strong setup. And I'm going to share with you my setup. And so I wanted to go through and just share with you a couple things about what helps me make trading sound decisions. And then I want to introduce my good friend. And I mean, we became friends over a long time as we were going back and forth, and his passion for trading, Dr. Jeffrey Scott, and who's been a fan of my work for a long time. He's a user of a program called HGSI, and it's taken me a long time. And it's funny because George, the founder and creator of the software, had me look at this in 2015. Now, friends, I'm Irish. I'm a little stubborn. I'm slow to the poke. But boy, when I get on something, it's hard to get off. And if you can relate to that, it's a true thing. And you know what? I'm a very loyal fan. And so what I found about this, it was like, there's so many things going on in my life: trading, advisory service, managing a fund. I just don't. By the way, I was in the midst of writing and coming out with it, updating a second edition of Candlestick and Pivot Point Trading Triggers. That book was written 16 years ago. It's been in the process of over 3 years. A lot of things have gone on from 2018, the market's active movements, 2019, and now today. But the news is that the book had been written, finished. It's in the editing process, and will be back on the store shelves probably at the end of this year, possibly. So the point is that there's a lot of things that are worthy of looking at, and a methodology that I've created has stood the test of time. And that's being able to say, boy, it worked on other platforms, but we took this information and put it on a platform that can combine other factors. And those other factors that are found in HGSI make what we've got an invincible tool. And it's amazing. And I really do know that you guys will love it. What we added to the HGSI person indicator package over here on HGSI is this PMC relative strength indicator. And I'll divulge that in just a minute. I believe for a stock, comparing against the S&P 500, for example, relative strength is everything. And we did this in a sense of a moving average component, which identified a stock's movement in 4 stages: improving, outperforming, starting to weaken, and lagging, and it's color coded. So if you're looking at a stock and it's in a buy signal and the relative strength is starting to improve relative to the overall market or outperforming, this is a solid signal. Then institutions are starting to see that as well. And that's what I mean by leveling the playing field with some of these institutional traders. Again, person's pivot indicator, a very powerful tool on multiple time frames: daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And for the record, the S&Ps are trading up this month, which concludes on Thursday, by the way, the high for the month, a key kind of reversal. But unfortunately, we're getting up near a predicted monthly person's pivot resistance. So rather than looking to buy stocks up on this rally, we today are starting to unload some of the long positions and lighten up as we are near this resistance. Some of you might be Fibonacci experts or Fibonacci users, and you may understand in the S&P 500 that we're close to a 618 retracement. I want you to know that at times Fibonacci interacts very well with the person's pivot indicator to the point where it's too redundant. And my work with the pivots that I've done in over 40 years have shown me that the pivots give me a specific support and resistance, and the person's pivot indicator gives me a targeted condition of the market: bullish, bearish, and neutral. And if the market's bullish, it will project higher highs and higher lows. So the person's pivot indicator is very important to know the location of price to being near resistance, which would signify overbought, or price near support, which would indicate the market's oversold. We also have another indicator called the last conditional change. It's another individual support and resistance tool that shows it on the individual bar charts. My famous high and low close doji triggers. And again, the PBS, we call it the person's buy and sell. Now, I like to be pretty compliant, and I like to be very compliant. And so that's why this is also known as the PPS indicator, person's pivot study. It is a momentum indicator, and it paints a buy and a sell arrow on the charts. And it was something also that can come up in your screens when you run scans. And what's neat is to run fundamental with sector percent change comps. And that's one of the things that I wanted to share with you briefly before I pass the baton over to Jeffrey. And because he's the one responsible for bringing me here. And, I just wanted to share with you, when I tell you that we can run scans in the John Person indicator and we can convert and add any fundamental factor we want, but also finding out what industry group the market is giving, but also find out a little bit more than any other software can do. What are the amount of stocks that are in maybe wood building materials also generated buy signals of my PPS indicator? In fact, if you look at Louisiana Pacific Corp right here, 100% of the stocks in that sector group are all in a buy signal. So that means you're buying a stock that is not the Lone Star Wolf. It's also running with the pack. And I got news for you. Institutions generally don't buy one stock. They buy a lot of them because they buy a sector group. So that to me is a very interesting scenario. So I also wanted to, just as I may be so bold, I wanted to cover quickly, and if you notice here that this stock has a person market catcher, fuchsia means it's improving. Now, when the relative strength is improving, and that's this tool down here, I'm going to expand this chart. When the relative strength's improving and you're getting into a buy signal and you're starting to trend higher and the whole sector group's also in a buy, this is a pretty good solid signal that you could look to join that trend or look to buy that trade. Now, let's look at PAG, which is Penske Auto Group. Once again, the reason I'm picking on Penske Auto Group is if you look and read the email invitation that we sent out, it specifically gave you guys a little taste bud of what we are looking at in the market. That's pretty brazen to say, hey, by the way, you guys want to look at Penske Auto Group. It's at 31.73, and we found this trade in the HGSI scans, and I send this trade out. Not many people are willing to do that, and yet I can stand by that because we had, if you look here, the relative strength, this fuchsia color, it's in an improving stage. And so as the market was rising and it had a shallow pullback, it's still in an improving relative strength. This is on a daily basis. Examine the weekly. The weekly was in a buy, pulled back, and generated a intra-week buy signal. So when the weekly's in a buy, by the way, and the daily's in a buy, as it is, you have a more powerful upside pattern. Now, again, it's only up 20% since we sent this email out. But you know what? And I know a lot of other stocks are up just as well. But this is a stock that's up without earnings. And Facebook, I know they had great earnings, and Tesla had some great earnings. But what makes this a very impressive trade is if we can teach you, which we will, that the last conditional change support, you can look to take a buy and know where to place your stop loss, and then use a little bit of money management to help you succeed in the road of trading and pick out better trades. And that's what's really magical about a software like HGSI, because at a snap of a finger, I can qualify the amount of trades, the type of trades, and also I can look and see whether or not there's strong volume, good participation in the group, and I can say, gee, is it outperforming relative to the market? So if you take a look at something that's lagging, even though it's in a buy signal, like a Dave and Buster's, let's see, no, that was, excuse me, Cracker Barrel, lagging. To be honest with you, I don't think I want to commit some of my hard-earned equity that I have to do the best with my capital as possible. And I have to have a decent rate of return on my capital. And when I look at this particular trade, and let's double check on CBRL, Cracker Barrel, I've just given you an example. The market, the relative strength, it's not really doing a whole lot on a daily basis. The weekly analysis is just starting to improve. This week now, it may generate a weekly buy signal, and that's what that's warning us. But I think maybe I could look at that trade next week. But right now, as a momentum trader, I need to know where to put my money to work the best place possible. And that's what these indicators do. Now, Jeffrey, I would like him to take over at this point, because he helped create a lot of these things for himself, taking my ideas like, what the heck is this little red and green bar? So I'd like to invite Jeff to come in. And Jeff, if you're with